basically the concept was there's two ways to look at it. When people start a fat loss phase, often they kind of go all in on everything. They try to lose weight on as low calories as possible. They try to do as much training as possible, as much cardio as possible, and they get great results initially, but then they burn out inevitably. It's not that it stops working, they just stop doing it primarily. So the John Meadows kind of bodybuilding approach I learned, and probably about 10 years ago, and I then actually started implementing a lot of things I learned in the bodybuilding world to more the general population world, was just that, like if we know at the start someone can lose weight on 25% deficit, great, let's start there, a little bit of training, kind of a minimum dose, we know we'll get good results. You get a little bit of results at the start, people start to feel good, builds momentum, builds their confidence, you create that buy-in, which is really important. At the start, when someone signs up with you, they're investing money into you, especially someone who has struggled to lose weight before. I always like to think they have a lot of self-doubt. They're judging whether or not you can help them. Like that voice in their head is like, oh, can this person help me? So those first few weeks, you always want to get them some change, some momentum, but a little bit of momentum for people, even losing a kilo for a lot of them, says, oh, wow, I can do this. So you only need a little bit at the start to create that momentum. But then what happens is over time, obviously, inevitably things will slow down. But then when things slow down, it's not the end of the world. When a plateau happens, you make a change, you can decrease calories, you can increase calorie output, and then you just keep chipping away and chipping away and chipping away. And so what I really liked about that is, especially as a coach, when plateaus occur, you have like an answer. It's not oh my God, it's a shock, I don't know what to do. It's inevitable, but you can also somewhat understand when they quite often will occur, so you can kind of preempt them and create some changes. So, let's say after every 3 weeks, you add a cardio session or something like that. But the concept really is about, let's try to get great results initially with a little bit, and a little bit, a little bit, and then just add on when needed. But as always, it depends. If someone's got 6 weeks, you got to lose 8 kilos in 6 weeks. It's probably not going to be that. I'm a big fan of aggressive deficits within reason for a short period of time. But when you've got a prep and you've got 16 weeks, 24 weeks to get someone lean, it's such a process. It's a physical rigors, it's a psychological standpoint, and trying to break it down. And I find coaches, when you can kind of explain to a client as well what you're doing, why you're doing it, they feel kind of like you really get them as well. All right, cool. This 4 weeks, where our goal is 2 kilos over the next 4 weeks, these calories should equate to that. Next 4 weeks, cool, it's slowed down, so we're going to create a slightly larger calorie deficit, add this. And when they see that, basically it's just like clockwork, it's just ticking each time, it's like, oh wow, and they get a lot of buy-in. And I think from a standpoint as well, with getting results, it's very much a standpoint of breaking things down. And what I really like doing is phase to phase, like 3-4 week phase, whatever, with the programming, calories, your cardio and stuff like that. It gives, I think, an identity to what you're doing. Your client understands it as well. And yeah, I think it's such a valuable tool as a coach. When I was much newer to the industry, before really a good understanding that we had of energy balance, it was like, all right, cut carbs, eat less, eat clean. And then the plateau, and you're like, fuck, like, I don't know what to do. Like, they're eating clean, they're low carbs, they're training a lot, and you didn't have the answers. And that's why I love, macro tracking, calorie tracking, because it just gives you such simple tools to play with. You know what's happening if they're doing it, and it gives you such easy ways to press buttons when you want more or less or whatever. And I think, for a coach, by breaking things up and explaining, hey, we're going to start small, we're going to start with less, they get a little bit of response, cool. But then when you can then hit a plateau and add a little bit more, they get momentum again. It's such a, obviously it works so well to get great results, but it also allows clients to really feel like you know what you're doing.
And I guess then if you had like someone that came to you and they're like, my wedding's in 6 weeks, that's where you throw the kitchen sink at it and you kind of like go for it a little bit more. And then you might, then post-wedding, get them back and be like, all right, now we need to go back to what we probably would have done before, sort of thing. It's like, well, they're going to be disappointed if you don't get them to that goal, because that's kind of why whether it's slightly unrealistic, is you can go a little bit more with it, but then you could start to go back and go through some of these more long-term techniques with them after that, event.
Yeah, something I'll say is that like when I got into the kind of the challenge game, 5 years ago, I noticed like a lot of people would do a challenge like, oh, let's do a calorie deficit. Let's put everyone on 1,500 calories
Yeah.
or 1,300 calories. They'll just generic meal plans. There's no real reason. And something I think I was one of the first to do in that world was, because it was very influency, and the better coaches back then were like, oh, I'm not going to do, challenges and stuff like that. But what I did back then was, it was primarily 8-week challenges. And my big thing was, well, how much weight do you want to lose in the 8 weeks? It's not just I want to lose weight. Well, let's identify it. If you want to lose 3 kilos, then your calorie deficit needs to be quite different. If you want to lose 5, 6 kilos or 8 kilos. So it's just understanding, well, what's the time frame? How much do you want to lose and when do you want to lose it by? And obviously just reverse engineering it back from there. And so obviously if you have 8 kilos to lose in 8 weeks, slow and steady wins the race approach is probably not going to be the answer to some degree. And it's just something that you need to be communicated to. But unfortunately, like my last challenge I actually did, it was a 6-week one, something different. And people go, oh, an aggressive deficit. We had the option for there. It sounds great to everyone, especially people who are new to fitness, until they start to do an aggressive deficit. So a lot of times, some people, the idea of fast results sounds great, but it comes at a cost. But yeah, so that's why, again, with everything I do, it's like, all right, cool, we do aggressive, as you said, cool, but then what's our exit strategy? What's our plan after the plan? And, working at companies 7-8 years ago, I was the head of coach of probably the biggest PT company in the world. I won't say them because they sued me, but they when I left, they were known for incredible results, like absolutely insane results. But then their clientele was very much, let's get incredible results, and then after my 12 weeks, leave. Like the job's done.
We get the progress photos and
I'll get the photos, and then about 12 weeks later, I'd see them in the street in the city, and I was like, fuck, what happened?
Yeah.
And that's what got me into things like reverse dieting and things like that. And not that, now there's more science we've learned is, there's nothing too magical about reverse dieting, but it's more from a metabolic standpoint, it was more just the idea of actually giving someone a plan of attack, how to exit a fat loss phase, over it being like this amazing thing of, getting metabolism back on track. It was more that, hey, keep tracking, keep having a goal after it. So whatever you're doing, even like, as you said, like, less is more at the start. Same with comp preps, post comp, you can then, it's then adding on. It's not just go, hey, let's go to a 10% surplus. Let's go to 6 days training and massive volume. It's having a plan of attack, choosing the right amount of volume, right amount of calories, whichever way, end of the spectrum.
Head over to Jordan Checker Podcast to get the full exclusive experience.